see how I'm doing on time. Ooh, I'm slow. All right, so one more project of mine. So I started this project about a year ago, which is crazy because I should have more of it done. But it started out as a Facebook conversation where someone had sent something to me and made a comment about a flag, and someone said it was ugly, and maybe I should redesign it. And I was like, yeah, it doesn't really sound like fun. And then 2 weeks later, I was like, oh, that sounds like fun. So I was like, all right, well, I honestly did not know what all the state flags look like. I mean, I don't know if that's lack of education or what, but I pulled them up and I was like, yeah, that's a pretty ugly group of logos, if you think of them as logos, which they're not. But they sort of are symbols that represent the state, and they need redesigned in a lot of ways. If you take out all the ones that look similar, all the blue ones, sort of cuts the amount of flags in half, which defeats the purpose. If you take out the ones that sort of use red, white, and blue primarily, again, you're not left with very many. If you take out the ones that have state symbols or state seals as their logo, which are really bad for flags when you think about the purpose of a flag being distinct and simple and clear, you're not left with very many. Excuse me. Arizona, Maryland, and New Mexico are kind of the ones that were left just in this process. If you take out the ones that are really well designed or designed in a strong graphic way, you're really left with two. I'm not saying that Maryland is a good design, but you can see how there's not a lot of identity or distinction in the US state flags. It's like, okay, this is an opportunity. I started, this is a big mistake, I started alphabetically. Not smart, because really, and alphabetically speaking, the ones that are at the top are a little bit more distinct. Not saying they're better, but they're more distinct than the others, and they pose interesting problems. I ended up keeping Alaska very similar. Arizona changed a lot, and you can go to my blog and see them. But the one I want to talk about today is California's flag. So I started this while I was in San Francisco, and it sort of became a passion project inside a passion project. So I'll quickly run through there. I'm going to duck down so I can fly through these slides. But this was the Lone Star flag, and it flew over California for a little while, and actually in the whole Southwest. Obviously, the Lone Star represents Texas, independence from Mexico, or the fight for independence from Mexico. Pretty good graphic flag, but that's not what the flag looks like today, obviously. In California's history, you have Spanish flag, Russian-American trading company flag, the British, Scotland for a while. A whole bunch of countries have flown their flag over the state. But this is the first one that was the California flag. They kind of borrowed it from Texas. The next one is really cool, and it's called the bear flag. This flag started out, it was first raised in Sonoma, I think 1836 or somewhere in there. And it was made with, brown cotton and blue or blackberry juice for the colors, and was hand drawn. And it was raised over in Sonoma County against the Mexican army, but they didn't put up much of a fight. So this sort of became the first California flag that was designed specifically for California. But at the time, it sort of became, if they had the internet, it would have been a meme for sure. They just started putting bears and stars and stripes on everything. The Christian flag, the Dr. Semple flag, and they were sort of named after the people that had designed it. But the cool thing about the first bear flag was that the designer was the first cousin of Mrs. Abraham Lincoln. So it's also called the Todd flag, which is the first bear flag. Here's an example of what it looked like early on, and this is starting to look very familiar to what the California flag looks like. This is the bear flag of 1899. And this is after they decided, whoa, all these flags are kind of crazy, we need to set some rules. So they set some rules, and this is sort of what they decided on. But like most state flags, which is sort of a surprise to me, there really aren't very many rules as to what your flag looks like. Arizona's, for instance, they know what the red and blue color is. They have no idea what the yellow or the gold or the copper should be, whatever it is. And it's everything in between, yellow and copper. So it's really interesting. You'd think there would be a standard for that, but there isn't. All state flags kind of have this mess from an identity or design standpoint. The bear in the flag was actually a bear they kept that was hunted by Hearst. It was modeled after the flag. It was in the Golden Gate Park. So it's kind of a real bear, which is kind of interesting. It was sketched by I guess a natural illustrator called Null. And that's sort of what the basis for the flag was. And this is the standard they set in the 50s. So there's a couple weird terms here if you're not a flag designer, and I wouldn't expect anyone to be. I'm certainly not. 1/6 fly, hoist is sort of the height, fly is the length. And they sort of break up the flag in those proportions. So they have some good rules. However, there's a lot of rules they didn't include. And this is the only thing in the bill besides like a paragraph telling what the California flag looks like. That's it. So it's kind of crazy. So I first set out to create some standards because the next few slides are all the flags that you can buy of California that are legit, that fly over buildings in California. So you have this one, this ugly thing, this one's not bad, probably the most standard, the one you see the most, and this one. So there's a lot of variety. Typefaces go all sorts of crazy, colors go crazy, the grass looks totally different in one form and the other. So part of my flag project is like, okay, I need to at least bring some standards to the California flag. Nerdy as all get out, like who does this stupid stuff? But when you get on something, you can't stop, right? So I was sort of on a mission. So I took the 1953 standards that they had written, and I added a few important things. So before there was no telling where the bear fell on the grass and how far the grass was from the type, let alone the typeface. So I set some rules kind of based on everything else, just some standardized margins. I tried to find a better version of the bear. This is a better illustration, I think, of the grizzly bear, which is on the flag. And this is kind of even embarrassing. I was obsessed with the grass because there was no shape, no clarification on what it was supposed to look like. And so I kind of did this exploration, the top one being the most accurate to what was on the most flags, drawn out, like sketched over the illustration. And then the next are sort of the grass you'll find on the flags. And then I tried to do a couple more modern versions underneath it that could just be a clean color. And so with the old artwork that I found in my new standards, right, this is what the flag would look like. The problem for me, besides the color palette, I don't feel like is right, because if you're in California, it's a totally different color palette on everything. This is California. Like everything they do is gold and blue. So I didn't feel like in the 2000s that California should have a green and red, white flag. Breaking with tradition, but I'm redesigning it, so it doesn't matter. It's my choice, right? So I think it should be blue and gold. As a quick aside to further document the nerdity is I went to the place where they had the real sketch of the bear and had some documents on the flag, and this is in Monterey. It's a Colton House is what they call it. And this is where the first Constitution for California was drawn up. Really nerdy. I would not ordinarily go to a place like this, but I was kind of on a mission. Found the original sketch of the bear, kind of matched with my further illustration example. And just because when you start learning about things, you start seeing that thing in the world. In Santa Barbara, they have all the flags lined up that have ever flown over California. And this was right as I'm writing this article. I'm like, this is great, you know? All the way from like the Spanish and the Russian American all the way up to the US during I believe the Civil War and the current California flag, which is one of the weird variations that I just showed you. Another shot of that. And then there was the matter of the typeface. So the typeface just was all crazy. So I did a lot of comparing between, the only wording in the law is that it had to be a Gothic typeface. That's it. There's a lot of Gothic typefaces. So I tried to find the one that matched the best. I worked with Accidents, Grotesque, and Folio and tried to see what could be done. There were some cool like little arms or bars on the R that I wanted to match that needed to be done custom, but got pretty close to it. And I ended up with something that looked like this. Now, for me, like this feels more like California, and it's more in line with what a flag should be. Simple, not illustrative, but graphic, can be produced in simple colors. When flown, it looks different than all the other states. You could end up with any result, you know, if you started this project. I hope if everyone did this, they would come up with something different. But this is what I came up with, and it's sort of indicative of the other 49 states. It's this really deep history journey. It's really kind of nerdy design stuff. But it's a really fun project that I put a lot of passion into, and I really enjoyed it. And I actually was contacted by one of the reporters at the Chronicle about trying to get a bill passed to standardize the state flag after they read my article, which I thought was really funny. And I'm still trying to do it because I think it would be amazing. Not necessarily this design, because that's probably too much for them, but the first design standardized with some rules. So it was kind of a fun deal. And I thought we could quickly go over a few passion projects of others that I admire, maybe like 5 minutes here, because I think they're good examples. The first one is from Matt Stevens, the Max 100 project. And basically, quickly, like he kind of started this, just like shoes, and was drawing them, and he was drawing them in different styles. So this one is obviously sort of on a box graphic. Next one, much like IKEA, kind of taking the shoe apart, breaking it into little pieces that compose it. New York style taxi, Nike, Air Max, very cool. And just was sort of his personal exploration of the subject, the form of the shoe, and his design. And he's a really good designer. I like him a lot. The next thing he did is he started designing the shoe like other people would design it. I think Aaron was here last year, if I'm not mistaken. Right, Jess? Draplin was here at Phoenix, yep. Really cool guy. Feltrin, Nicholas, so obviously the style here. Michael Schwab, who did all the tourism and Golden Gate posters. And this is where it started to take off. And his passion project, what started as a small thing, started to grow. He started as a Kickstarter project. It became a book, which is awesome. I think you can still get it. Did a few showings, actually did a showing in Dubai. And then, he collaborated with someone with Nike's approval to actually make these shoes. And this was just this week, or last week. He auctioned them off on eBay, which was really cool. Like one-of-a-kind versions of all the shoes that he did. I think they did 10 actually, but based on all the illustrations that he'd done. So that's kind of like a little small passion project that grew and grew and kind of took over his life in a lot of ways. But awesome. Like he did thousands of them. So you can kind of see the scale like that he's kind of stumbled upon. He just couldn't stop doing it. The next one is the branding 10,000 Lakes, which was done by Nicole Mayer, who actually used to work at Moses, and she was going to brand 10,000 lakes, which obviously is a Herculean task. But she started out and was going to do one a day for a year, which I think has now just ended, and she's still doing this. But she's working with something that's really, really tough. She has a lot of passion for, and it's totally in line with design. And each one is kind of unique and fun, and you can tell that she is enjoying doing these. Flip through a few of these. I pulled out some of my favorites that I think were indicative of a nice departure from each one, more unique. Love this one. This one's Lost Links Lake, I think. Really fun design project that, is, yes, personal, but a little bigger than that, right? Probably my favorite. I love it. Okay. And then one last one, not to keep you too long. This one was about, I think, a couple years ago, and this guy named Tyler flew on Delta and was just kind of looked at that pass probably for a minute too long while waiting for his flight and sort of just started to freak out. He's very passionate about it. So what he did is he put his pass up, talked about all the design problems it had, and then started to redesign it. So he took the form of the boarding pass and started playing around with like, okay, what information is important? What do I need to give the passenger to make it clear? How can I make this more user-friendly? So he did a couple of these. And then he started asking people to participate. This is sort of the, we want to keep things close, but if you open it up, it ends up being a lot more fun sometimes. And so people started to submit their versions of these boarding passes, just trying to play with the visual hierarchy and what's important in the design. I submitted this one. I did it like most things. You want to play along with other people's projects. I just was like, I just want it to be simple and get all the information in one bait. So I did it in sort of prose, and I don't know that it's the best boarding pass, but it's fun to play along. Take like an hour or two and participate in someone else's passion is great. And I really enjoyed it. And I think for him, it was sort of a project that got him a lot of visual notoriety. But the funny thing is we all know it's going this way anyway, so we were designing paper passes that really are going to be obsolete in probably 2 years anyway. But it's a passion project. You can't stop. It doesn't have to make sense. So I want to, in the next few minutes that we have, or the last few minutes that we have, sort of to challenge everyone in the group, because I really do care about the Phoenix creative community and the design community in particular. And I want to talk about what we can do to sort of start our passion projects. Everybody should have a project that they love. If you don't, you're missing out, because it can be a lot of fun. But it requires people to be self-starters. No one's going to tell you to do this. No one's going to set a due date. No one's going to go, hey, instead of doing blah, you should do this. You kind of have to have your own self-determination. This is the tough one. I'm actually participating in this right now. It's kind of hot. They require bodily fluids. You're going to sweat, you're going to cry, and you're going to work really hard. And you may even bleed. Jess probably has been moving all these tables around. Probably got cut or something, who knows. Working hard. But passion projects, they require everything that you have. So it's not for the faint of heart. It's not for the timid. Like when you do a passion project, give it everything you have. One thing that you want to know is, like, when you do a project that has some scale and is kind of visual and you invite people to either participate in one level, there's really no place to hide. Like, you're kind of on your own. Like the flag project. I mean, one thing I learned is if you redesign flags, people, oh, that's great, whatever. If you redesign their flag, like, they have a problem with it. Like, how dare you change my state flag? And so you get a lot of comments back and forth, and really there's no place to hide. Like, I did it, and that's okay, I'll take it. But you just want to be ready for the very visual nature, kind of out in the open, and you have no one to blame for the results. It's just you. But this is really, really key, and I will attest to this for sure. These are great figurines that you can actually get on Etsy, by the way. There's a link here. Not mine, but passion projects help us find ourselves. Like, it helps you when you find something that you love. Like, why do you love it? Like, what about that project kind of makes you tick or kind of gets you excited? Probably you want to start doing more of that in your life and less of other things, right? So over time, you kind of figure out a little bit more about yourself. So where your passions overlap, your career, like, that's kind of the sweet spot. But the more you do these passion projects and the more you put yourself into your work, hopefully it looks a little more like that. Like, where you're not really separating your work from your passion, like they start to become one and the same thing. And that's not always possible, and it's certainly really lucky if you're in that position. I feel extremely lucky to be in the position I'm at. I feel like that is more and more true with my life, and it's an exciting place to be when you're creative, right? I mean, you start to be doing the things that you want to do. And I would encourage everyone to go down that path. Like, get excited about something. Like, seriously, like, be a nerd, like, geek out on it, like, get other people to do the same. Get the band together, like, do something that's worthwhile and worth doing. So next week, or next year when we come back, and you've shared it with the world, when we do something next year, Phoenix Design Week, whatever, everybody will have a passion project that they can talk about and share, and I guarantee you it will lift the creative credit of the city. Everyone will start to feel more proud about creating and being and living in Phoenix, and it will help every one of us in terms of getting our career and our passions to overmatch a little bit more. That's it. Thank you.